Recording in progress. Welcome to, what's the name of the show?
Malcolm Presents and Conversations with Deborah, thanks to South Carolina. And it's the first program of, let's see, if I were the president of the United States, I would say it would be 2020, but I think it's 2022, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, 2022.
Whatever in your mind.
So how are you?
Confused.
Uh-oh, what happened?
No, and today's, I'm doing a Zoom, and I have this sort of like down with what I do. Now I have a thing called, I have another show called The Many Shades of Green.
Yeah, I
Which
remember.
we've been doing on, actually only on audio with Hudson River Valley,
Okay.
which can put it on all the, podcasts, audio only podcasts. But yesterday we did it on Malcolm Radio, malcolmpresents.com.
All right.
So it's video. Then I had to convert it to audio to send to the studio because the studio is out.
Uh-oh, go ahead.
So now when I sent it over to the studio, the load was too big because I think the show was like about 40 minutes, only supposed to be 30.
Yeah.
So I had to have it converted to OneDrive.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how to do. So my son did it.
Good.
And he converted it.
Okay.
And they sent it because they sent it out on a, instead of an email, they send it out on a link.
Yep.
So it can take more audio, more room, and that you could do on video also. So now this morning I get a call that the engineer at Hudson Radio, we sent it over in an MP4.
Okay.
And he needs an MP3.
I know. I was going to say he wants an MP3.
Right. So now,
typical engineer.
Right. So now I have to convert it back. And now I have to convert the show. But I went to OneDrive and I couldn't find it because now it's over at OneDrive, not on my regular, memory.
Yeah. And it may have already been sent. So.
And then I have to find out again. Then I have to go back. If I can convert it from an MP4 to an MP3, which I can. I looked under Google, but it gave me instruction. Well, first you have to do it to the cloud. What cloud?
Oh God!
So I wait till my son is able to do it, but I feel so helpless.
No, and I don't mean to laugh. It's once again, things get so doggone complicated about things, and it's a marvel that you and I can be chatting back and forth. We are old time friends, not old, but we're old time friends. And I moved out as a native Californian. I moved to South Carolina about 6 years ago. Malcolm and I have been buds for, my goodness gracious, it's been what, maybe 20 years, something like that.
Since the Constitution was signed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good year.
Right?
That's a good year. But it's no, things get, it's very interesting. I love the technology. But I have to tell you, you have to read the instructions. And the craziest thing about it, I've been teaching my husband how to not get frustrated over the computers and what have you, but just go back to where you were stable, where the system was stable. And yet still, I mean, I have things like the Facebook portal. I now got, because I'm an Inspector Gadget person. I love all kinds of technology and gadgets, but they do get confounding. I just got an Amazon Fire. And just the different languages and the MP3s and the MP4s and all of the various types of things. And it can make you feel very frustrated.
I record MP4 was video and MP3 was, but anyway. And then aside from that, then I've been dealing with AT&T on my cell phone.
Oh no, you got a brand new cell phone. You were so excited.
So now they gave me certain features.
Okay.
I said I didn't want, right?
All right.
So they charged me for it.
Oh, you mean the squirrel channel? You didn't want the squirrel channel?
Not the squirrel channel. It's not it was for the cell phone. It's not for the.
Oh, I see.
Not for the TV.
Okay.
The TV I have all the channels aside from the porn channel.
There you go.
But that's not out of my thing. I'm not above watching porn, but
nobody should be.
My wife has a thing about that. But anyway, So they overcharged me by about $78. So I called,
Holy smokes.
so I have an order, I have an automatic paying thing, you know, at the end of the time, because they give you a break on that, which is fine.
Yeah.
So I call them up and they say, okay, we'll take the $78 off and we'll just charge you whatever.
Yeah.
2 days later, I get a bill from my credit card saying that you automatically charge $78. So obviously one computer didn't talk to the other computer and they were automatically taken off. So I called them up and they say, I'm sorry, Mr. Berman, you know, we'll take that, that charge was taken off and just, you know, it will be taken off immediately. It was. And I haven't gotten usually I get something, you know, we took $78 off on a email. So I haven't gotten that yet. Now my wife gets this notice on her phone that she was charged the extra $5 for something that I canceled. So now I have to call them again. And I don't mind calling them, except when you call them, you have to wait an hour.
Yeah. It's
all our professionals are busy and, you know, please wait on and we will take your call. And I go crazy.
Yeah, it's a little bit nuts. The only thing I can suggest is you do have the AirPods that you can put into your and you can walk around and get things done while you're waiting. The other thing that they're starting to do now, because they can't get any people to work, is saying, give us your telephone number, we'll call you back in an hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever the case may be.
And that's a hit and miss. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I know. But you're very good in keeping an eye on things because it's remarkable. I'm going through all of our charges right now and looking at the subscriptions and making sure that we are not being overcharged. I was overcharged a couple of bucks by Netflix. I'll be doggone if I'm going to give Netflix an extra $2. And oh, by the way, do you watch anything on Netflix? Is there anything of interest to you on Netflix?
I can't, I don't remember specifically. I saw a very good show on HBO Max.
Oh, really? Okay.
Reunion of Harry Potter.
Oh, really? Without J.K. Rowling.
Yeah. and it was like the three guys getting together talking about the show. They were in the, you know, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Gint.
Yeah, they got to be close to getting Social Security these days now.
That was 20 years ago, and they probably did, probably by the time they shot it, the last show was 20 years ago.
That's
so
right.
they shot it, so they're probably in the mid-30s now.
There you go.
But it was very interesting, and they all feel that warmth towards each other.
That's good.
Very heartwarming.
We all need that. And speaking of which, let me go ahead and introduce. This is the middle child. This is Ziggy. Hey, Zigster. Yeah.
As I always say, you run a cat house.
I am, and I do love it. It's wonderful.
You should be in New Orleans.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been very interesting because we're now starting to truly get the winter time in. We've had some very, very warm temperatures here in Greenville. I mean, I'm talking 72 to 75. Heck, I feel like I'm back in Southern California again, but we're going to be going down to 20.
It's in the 50s today.
Well, I'll tell you, tonight we're going to be down into the 29s and what have you. So it'll be interesting. All of the garden has basically died off because obviously we're in winter time and all of that. But we're all prepped and all ready to go, and plenty of blankets and plenty of cats and what have you. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very, very interesting. We're waiting for another storm to come in. Looks like this evening and tomorrow. We have been having some very unusual weather. Obviously, the tornadoes that took place in Kentucky, the middle of December, and then they got hit again with another set of tornadoes going through Bowling Green, Kentucky. My goodness, God bless those poor people. And then they just got snow. I think 3, 4, 5 inches worth of snow. But fortunately, we don't get that kind of activity up here. We're right up against the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we don't get that much snow. Thank heavens for that. So the big news for us is that this is the time of year. I started actually November, December. I start going back through all the finances again and making sure that every one of our fixed income dollars counts, especially now that the inflation rate is up as high as it is, highest in 30 years now, unfortunately. But at any rate, going through all of the subscriptions, going through all of the various bills that we pay, et cetera, et cetera. So we're now going through the throes of possibly doing another refinance. And yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I said, I was after I left the news business from Los Angeles and from San Diego, where I worked for Cap Cities and worked for PBS and National Public Radio before they went woke. I became a loan officer with various home savings before they went bankrupt, and then I went with World, and then with most recently with Bank of America. But it's very, very interesting because the last time you and I talked, we were talking about maybe discussing more of money types of things, because although I did dabble in the stocks and I did okay. I mean, I do small profits and that's about it, you know, $100 here, $25 there, and what have you. I decided to go ahead and sell off all of the stocks, and I'm waiting at this point because it appears as the stock market is starting to get a little bit jittery, to say the least. We're seeing the Dow go down a couple of 100 points every day and then maybe up 10 or 15 points. The NASDAQ, with all of the computer stocks, has just been tunneling. It's just been cratering at this point. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I was talking to my husband's middle daughter, and she was talking about the fact that there was no way she could possibly afford a home. I have to tell you, when my husband and I moved here to South Carolina 6 years ago, I won't even tell you what my FICO score was. I had come off caring for my late husband for 5.5 years, and the FICO score was absolutely horrendous. And we were able to still buy a home. And it's interesting, all of the misconceptions about money, and if you are on a fixed income or if you are making less than $50,000 a year, the idea is, oh, there's no possible way that you can get ahead. Baloney. And I think we're going to talk about some of those issues, because I keep hearing that same refrain. There's no way I can do this. There's no way I can do that. Inflation, of course, is up. There's no doubt about it. But there are ways that, not just from saving, but just utilizing your money in a different way to be able to make things a whole lot better for you and your family. And I look at this way. My money, our money, needs to bring joy to the family. And that's one of the reasons that we're going to go ahead and possibly refinance, because frankly, I don't want our money stuck with the bank being able to control it. I mean, a lot of folks talk about paying off your mortgage and all of that, but I'm really not of that school. I'm of the school that take the money out, utilize it for your family and yourself for joy. And I don't want to ask permission from the banks, especially now. Especially now.
I have the name of the show. It's Deborah Does Dollars.
Yeah. Well, it'll be part of manning up, okay?
Well, that's what we had. I started which we did never continue, the blog that you remember you were writing, and that was Manning Up.
Well, I think that I'm getting on back into it again, because the COVID thing had its good points and its bad points, which reminds me, once again, I'm going to trail off. How are your sons? They had COVID.
They're out of their quarantine already, and they have no side effects.
Phew, thank heavens. Now, did they go to get tested someplace to find out that they actually had the Omicron variant, or that
Well, they didn't find out what variant they had, but they did get tested. They did get to see what CPR, not CPR. What is it?
Whatever it is, yeah, it's a test.
Let's see, it's a PCR.
PCR, okay.
And I just had the home test, and I was the rapid test, and I was negative. But I figured out, if I was positive, what would I do? Because I really don't mix with people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm more or less do most of my work out of the house, and the only time I really go out is I run in the morning, but I'm out most of the time, and I'm generally not close to people. You know, people maybe go from 5-10 feet from me, but that's for maybe a second or two. But I don't know how. virulent the Omicron is.
Well,
What,
obviously not two, because now you have one of your sons that lives with you. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay. So, I mean, if it were phenomenally contagious, I would have imagined that you would have gotten it.
Yeah, but he's wearing his face mask, but he still touches the same things I touch sometimes without wiping it down.
That's right.
I don't know, but I would say about 2/3 of my family, which is mainly my wife's family, and they're younger,
Yeah.
were positive, were COVID positive
And was it just recently?
just recently, within the last month or so.
Okay.
And
And
none of
how are
them,
they?
thank God, none of them were, that ill. They just sequestered themselves, and
Good.
maybe they're saying, they had the sniffles or a cough,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
nothing worse. Now I read where almost any, I said, they said, what are the simple symptoms of Omicron? And it was sniffles, dizziness, headache. It was like everything that ever goes wrong, sore throat. I mean, that's sort of the symptoms of anything. You get a cold,
This sounds kind of familiar, like a cold or maybe the flu.
right? So
Well,
it started out.
I'm not downgrading it. I'm not downgrading it
No,
because I definitely had it February of 2020, and it was nothing to laugh about. It was really something.
well,
But
I know most of the people everybody that I know, they had it in the family is at least have the 2 vaccinations, and a lot of them, the older ones, have the booster. My kids didn't have the booster.
okay, interesting. Well, it's funny, and I think I brought this up before, but I want to bring it up again. I think the way that this whole vaccination situation has been marketed was wrong. It was shoving people into a box and beating the holy out of them to say that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. I really think that was just a terrible marketing move, a terrible move against trying to answer people are people, for crying out loud. And it was funny, I was having a conversation with my brother, who is back in Santa Barbara from where I moved with my husband. And they're having a tremendous influx of COVID and the Omicron, primarily, unfortunately, and he's been a solid Democrat for years and years and years. He's going back and blaming the number of immigrants that are coming up from the border who are unvaccinated and unboosted, what have you. But all that being aside, his comment was very interesting. He said, I don't think we should be talking about it being a vaccination. It's not protecting us from anything. It is boosting our immunity. And I thought, well, that is brilliant. It's an immunity booster. That's basically what these shots are. And I mean, I've had both. I had both, plus I've had the booster. And if I have to have another one, I'm fine with that. I don't care. I take the flu shot. I just, who cares? It's fine.
Well,
But I thought that was an interesting way of putting it as an immunity booster rather than a vaccination, which I think has a lot of political overtones, which obviously it has. So,
well, I don't want to go into the whole thing because I have a little different, take on things, as you know, with what the vaccination is and how it became political.
mhm.
But that's for another show, and we can get on our boxing gloves and headgear.
But I think if we look at it differently, if it were marketed more as a booster to your immunity, I
Right.
think that it would have been accepted far more easily than the way it was portrayed as a vaccination and what have you.
Right, but they say a rose is a rose is a rose.
Well, yeah, I do. And once again, I have a number of my buddies who don't have vaccinations, and I don't understand it. And I have nothing to fear because I've been boosted and vaccinated, what have you. But I don't understand it. If it's there, I don't know. But at any rate,
Well, actually, speaking about that, there is a case now in the Supreme Court. I think even as we talk, it's being argued about
Yeah.
whether the federal government has the power to make large corporations, I think with over 100 people,
Mhm.
whether it makes the vaccination mandatory.
Yeah, it's before the Supreme Court, and I think they're going to have a heck of a time making the case that the government does have the power to be able to do it, because primarily, and their Achilles tendon here is the fact that they cannot call it a health disaster because of the fact they're not treating the immigrants who are coming up from the border without vaccinations. They can't, and they're now depositing many of those people across the country. How can you have a health disaster when in fact you're not actually treating individuals who are coming up from the border with booster and with vaccination shots?
I don't think your information is 100% correct.
What part is incorrect?
What?
Oh, what part is incorrect?
The people that they do stop, I think they are inoculated. The ones, but a lot of the people coming across the border are coming across the border illegally and are not detected. They're not. It's not that they're not given shots or they're not given health examinations. It's they don't know that they're here because they're being smuggled over. They're being illegally crossing, and it's not something that we are turning our back to. It's just at this point there's no control.
Well, I'm not doing a blame game situation here because, in fact, I mean the vaccinations and the boosters were free of charge. Excuse me.
But take a look at the guys behind you. Oh no, they just left.
Gentlemen.
They were just sort of pouring with each other.
They are brothers. They are certainly brothers. Okay. But no, the shots were wonderfully free of charge. So was the booster. But our problem is that and I've heard it from several different reliable sources, including NBC News and ABC, along with Fox, that in fact, the number of vaccinations that are going on from people coming across the border has just been a thimbleful. And unfortunately, then those individuals are then deposited throughout the country. So I think that the argument that we have a health situation that warrants the president mandating people lose their jobs unless they're vaccinated, I think there's a huge hole you can drive a truck through. Of course, you don't have any anymore. So.
The thing is, it should be, if you can control certain things, it should be controlled. The immigration right now is not being controlled. It's not that they're not doing it. And if you can control large companies, why not? To get the American populace more into, get the vaccination, because I don't think that there is as far as I know, and I don't think you think there is a question that the vaccinations help prevent.
No, I definitely think. I mean, I feel far more at ease having had it, even though everybody talks about natural immunity and what have you. I don't need to get this thing again. But I do think we're going to end up, as many of the doctors are now saying, even the doctor who was basically the father of the Moderna vaccination said we're going to have to learn how to live with this as we do with seasonal flu and what have you.
You might have to take an annual shot, which I'm not against, and I don't think it's so that bad.
No, I don't think it's that bad.
And I think before it became so political, I think again, there are lots of reasons it became political, and we can go into that, but that would take another 17 hours of our time. I mean, what I get totally bored in all the news stations is there's nothing new reporting. They're only rehashing the whole, or as I say in Yiddish, the whole mess. In Yiddish,
of course, we just came through January the 6th, and I'm sorry, part of my New Year's resolution was reducing the number of hours of watching news. I only watched a little tiny bit of the January 6th, but I did catch Nancy Pelosi, who introduced some of the actors from Hamilton who were singing about liberty and democracy and what have you. I do think that it's a road too far that the Democrats are calling the January 6th, continuing to call it an insurrection, when in fact there were no weapons except for one or two, unfortunately, that killed a protester. But for them to talk about the fact that it is the demise of democracy, these people were hooligans that went in, running around with the shaman's outfit and what have you. I mean, this was like a Halloween parade for crying out loud.
Right.
And
They
and
only had to do.
I do find it interesting that the sergeant of arms who was replaced the old one during the period of time of January the 6th of last year, that sergeant of arms refuses to give some of the email communications. Apparently, there is some indication that there was a request, several requests that the National Guard be on hand, but they were denied. And of course, the rumor is it was denied by Nancy Pelosi. Once again, I'm not going to report that until I actually see the facts. But if that's the case, I mean,
Nancy Pelosi has nothing to do with calling the National Guard. She could recommend it, but she can't call it. The only one that.
no. She can decline. I'd like to know exactly the individual who declined the several requests to have the National Guard on hand during the protest. So,
Well, okay, as a news reporter, that's your assignment for next week.
they're not releasing it. They're talking. And I think at this point right now, Judicial Watch will be able to do a FOIA request, which is the Freedom of Information Act. Will do a FOIA request requesting that documentation. And it will be interesting to see.
I find it kind of interesting that the only Republican that showed up on the anniversary was Don Cheney and his daughter.
I know. I know.
And it's like the Republicans say, no, this didn't happen.
Again, of Halliburton and George Bush, and Halliburton made so much freaking money out of the wars in the Middle East. I mean, oh, for crying out loud.
What was it? Cheney called Bush's brain. I think there was a book like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's
we've had some big mistakes on both sides of the party, both Democrat and Republican. I gotta tell you, it's been a three-ring circus for a little while.
I think there should be a term limitations on senators.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys have been there 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't know what's happening in the world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, I think it should be, and I don't think like, Joe Manchin and Sinema should have the same equal voting rights in the Senate as senators from California and New York and Florida. I mean, they represent 4 people.
I understand that, but I do think that the reason that was done that way by the founders is to make sure that no one state could bully other states. And I do think that there could be an area. I mean, for example, the Build Back Better bill is now basically in suspension. And of course, everybody's blaming Manchin and Sinema from Arizona, Manchin from West Virginia, and Sinema from Arizona. But the bottom line is that there are, when you tear things apart, there are various aspects of the Build Back Better that I would like to be able to see in individual bills, not this humongous 2,400 page monstrosity, which Nancy Pelosi once again is saying you have to pass it to be able to read it. I think that there are various aspects of Build Back Better that I, as an independent, although I do sway conservative and to the Republican side, especially these days, that there are many aspects of that bill that could be very, very helpful. So, but the whole thing, no, come off it. We can't afford it.
How long has that bill, the way it is, been in front of the Congress, in front of the Senate?
About 6 months.
That's 6 months.
No, in front of the Senate, only since December.
Okay. So, well, do you think any of the senators have read it?
No, actually, I do think many of them have read it. The only problem is, once again, there are so many different aspects because it covers so many different things. For example, it talks about, electric cars. And I don't know about you, but I can't afford an $80,000 electric car.
Yeah, it's not going to be $80,000. You're making this up.
It is.
Now it is, but as soon as it's mass produced, it's going to be like the automobile. Why was the automobile cheaper? It's Ford did an assembly line with them. The Model T.
But I must say that I would love to see it. For example, I'd like to see a hybrid car. I like to have a combination of some gas, the way the Priuses do it, gas and electric. I like that combination because, for example, I-95, that terrible situation that happened this last week where the snow came down and they had how many miles was it 25, 50 miles worth of people stranded on the freeway for 24 hours plus. If they all had electric vehicles, Malcolm, what would they have done? Nothing. They would have run out of electricity.
But they ran out of gas. The modern the electric car has as much gas, has as much capacity to run as a gas engine. I figured out one time, if your engine is 20 miles per gallon and you have, and you have 20-gallon tank or a 50-gallon tank, I think 20-gallon tank, I think, is the standard. If you have a 20-gallon tank at 20 miles per hour, it's 400 miles. And the electric car can run, for 500-600 miles. So there'd be more of electricity.
Not exactly. They're getting there. They're getting there.
The big thing with the electric cars is to get the carbon footprint out of the way, which is the important thing. It's not whether it's gas or electric or whatever. It's not to pollute the air. It's not to get the carbon footprint out of there, so we don't destroy our planet. Everybody's comparing gas to electricity. That's not it. But anyway, what I have to say is the thing that you can stop is time.
Got it.
And our time has run out. Believe it.
But I think we agreed on a couple of different things today. All right. I think we agreed on, for example, some aspects of Build Back Better. I'd like to see it in separate bills. I think you would too. I think some of the things that you talked about would be that I'd like to know where the money is going and how the money is being spent. It's very simple stuff.
Well, I'd like to see some of the laws put through Congress where someone who is a congressman or works in like one of the committees or that's supposed to safeguard America can't then leave it and then step into industry.
I agree.
Like a general cannot go to a munitions company right afterwards, and they do. They switch back and forth.
I agree, because unfortunately there's too much inbreeding at this point right now. You know what happens with inbreeding. The crowned heads of Europe know all about inbreeding,
and they're still doing it.
I know. I know.
But anyway, at least my blood is being spread. My children are now they're part, as they call them, they're Jutinos.
Jutinos, how sweet.
For me and Salvadorian from Anna. So
well, it's funny. I did get a lifetime subscription to Babbel, and I am learning a number of different languages. And young man, I think you need to learn a little bit of Spanish. I think you need to learn a little bit of Spanish.
Actually, I have to learn a modern day lingo because I listen to the kids talk.
Yeah.
On television, the college kids or the high school kids, and I don't understand what they're saying because they're saying the idioms, which to me make no sense.
But we did when we were teenagers too.
So I have to learn modern day English. But anyway, my dear, you have a warm weekend or warm week.
I will, and you too. And I'm glad that your kids are okay. You keep okay as well, and we're fine. We didn't get the Omicron, and we're taking good care of ourselves. So
okay, fantastic. And again, keep warm because you have the weather. I speak to my friend in New York, and I tell her, oh, it's because yesterday when I went out walking, it was like in the mid 70s, low 80s, about 12 o'clock. Today at 12, it was like 49 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So
and she's getting the storm. She's getting a huge storm right now.
She's getting a new storm and supposed to go back to the teens tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
know.
I will speak to you next week. Send my love to Fish.
I'll see you next week, and my love to all.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, by the way, you're listening to Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue, heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com. Remember, tell your friends about it. You're the only one that can make us happen. Share it, follow us, and I'm going to say love us. You don't have to love us. You just have to find us interesting. Let me know.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye now.